They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes, it comes with a side of bitter satisfaction that makes the wait worthwhile. The notification popped up on my phone: Kate Wilson wants to connect with you on LinkedIn. I stared at her profile picture: perfect makeup, practiced smile, not a hair out of place. Just like always. My former best friend hadn't changed a bit in a year since she'd stolen my life and walked away with it. My finger hovered over the ignore button, but something made me pause. Maybe it was destiny, or maybe it was the universe finally dealing me the hand I'd been waiting for. I clicked accept. 12 years earlier, on my first day of high school, I was the awkward new kid with braces and a tendency to hide behind thick-rimmed glasses. Kate was the first person who smiled at me, really smiled, not the pitying looks I got from everyone else. She plopped down next to me at lunch, declared my sandwich looked boring, and split her cookie with me. Just like that, we were inseparable. For over a decade, Kate and I shared everything. Late-night phone calls about our dreams, tearful confessions about our fears, wild celebrations of our victories. She held my hand when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I helped her through her parents' messy divorce. We had the kind of friendship people write movies about, the unbreakable bond between two girls who grew into women together, supporting each other through every step. When I met Tom at a charity gala 4 years ago, Kate was the first person I called. I couldn't stop gushing about the handsome entrepreneur with kind eyes and a passion for sustainable technology. She listened to every detail, squealed at all the right moments, and insisted on helping me pick out my outfit for our first real date. Tom and I fell hard and fast. He was everything I'd dreamed of: intelligent, ambitious, and seemingly devoted to making the world a better place. His startup focused on developing affordable solar technology for developing countries, and his enthusiasm was infectious. Within 6 months, we were talking about marriage. By our first anniversary, he had proposed, and I was floating on cloud 9. Kate was, of course, my maid of honor. She threw herself into wedding planning with the same intensity she brought to everything in life. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way she lingered when Tom was around, how she always managed to touch his arm when laughing at his jokes, the late-night planning sessions that somehow always ended up with just the two of them discussing his business while I dozed off on the couch. But I trusted them both completely. That was my first mistake. 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from a business trip. The house was quiet, but Tom's car was in the driveway. I thought I'd surprise him, maybe order some takeout, open a bottle of wine, have a quiet evening together. Instead, I found them in our bedroom. Kate's designer dress was crumpled on my floor, and my best friend was in my bed with my fiancée. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Tom moved out, the wedding was cancelled, and Kate had the audacity to try to explain. "It just happened," she said, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "We never meant to hurt you. Sometimes the heart wants what it wants." I didn't say a word. I just watched as she packed up her maid of honor dress and walked out of my life. 3 months later, they were married in a private ceremony in the Hamptons. I saw the pictures on Instagram: Kate in the designer gown she'd once helped me pick out, Tom looking at her the way he used to look at me. I left town after that. Moved to Chicago, threw myself into my career, and tried to forget. I blocked them both on social media and asked our mutual friends not to mention them. I was doing okay, not great, but okay. Until that LinkedIn request appeared. Kate's message came an hour after I accepted her connection: "Anna, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I really need to talk to you. Please." I agreed to meet her at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She looked different now, the perfect facade was cracking. Her designer clothes couldn't hide how thin she'd become, and no amount of concealer could cover the dark circles under her eyes. "Tom's cheating on me," she blurted out before I could even sit down. "With his new VP of marketing. And that's not even the worst part. The company, The one you helped us start with your father's investment, he's running it into the ground. He's been making risky decisions, ignoring the board's advice. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. I sipped my latte, letting the silence stretch between us. Kate had always hated silence. I know I have no right to ask for your help, she continued, her voice breaking. But you're the only one who really understands the business. You were there from the beginning. Please, Anna. I don't know what to do. I set down my cup carefully, studying her face. The same face that had once shared my secrets, dried my tears, and then betrayed me in the worst possible way. Why should I help you? Because despite everything, I know you're a good person. Better than me. And because this isn't just about me, there are employees who depend on this company, projects in developing countries that will fall apart if we fail. Please, Anna. Help me fix this. I pretended to think about it, though my mind was already racing ahead, plotting and planning. Okay, I said finally. I'll help. But I need full access to the company's financials and complete control over any major decisions. The relief on her face was almost painful to watch. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. You won't regret this. But she would. Over the next 3 months, I worked methodically. I reviewed every contract, examined every investment, and identified every weakness in the company's structure. Tom was too busy with his affair to notice what I was doing, and Kate was too grateful for my help to question my methods. I discovered that Tom had been cooking the books for months, hiding losses and inflating profits. He'd also been diverting company funds into a private account, presumably his escape plan for when everything fell apart. It was almost too perfect. My father's initial investment had been the seed that grew the company. Without proof of that investment, the entire foundation of the business would crumble. So that's exactly what I erased, every trace of that original funding, every document that proved where the startup capital had come from. In their place, I created a paper trail that led nowhere. Then I made sure Tom's mistress, the ambitious VP of marketing, received an anonymous email detailing exactly how he treated his previous fiancée. Included were screenshots of old text messages between Kate and Tom from when they were sneaking around behind my back. Messages Kate had kept as some sort of twisted souvenir of their affair. The VP was smarter than Kate had been. She took the evidence of financial misconduct straight to the board of directors. Within weeks, the company was under investigation, Tom was facing criminal charges, and Kate was watching her perfect life crumble just as mine had. But I wasn't done yet. Remember that private account where Tom had been hiding money? I made sure Kate found out about it, and about the fact that he'd been planning to leave her just like he'd left me. The final betrayal broke something in her. She filed for divorce the same day the company declared bankruptcy. I watched it all unfold from my office in Chicago, sipping coffee and reading the increasingly desperate emails from both of them. They never suspected I had orchestrated their downfall. They were too busy blaming each other. Kate showed up at my door one rainy night, mascara running down her face. Everything's gone, she sobbed. The company, Tom, my savings, I have nothing left. Please, Anna. You're the only friend I have left. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had been my best friend, my sister, my betrayer. That's where you're wrong, I said quietly. I'm not your friend. I haven't been since the day you decided to take everything that was mine. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You planned this? All of it? Let's just say karma needed a little help this time. I started to close the door, then paused. Oh, and Kate? Consider us even. The look on her face as I shut the door was worth every minute I'd waited for my revenge. They say living well is the best revenge, but I disagree. The best revenge is watching those who hurt you realize exactly what they've lost, and knowing they'll never get it back. Kate and Tom had gambled with my happiness and lost. Now they were paying the price, and I finally felt free. Sometimes at night, I still look at old photos from our childhood, Kate and me with our matching friendship bracelets, sharing secrets and dreams. I wonder if she ever thinks about the girl she used to be, the friend she used to have. I wonder if she understands that her betrayal didn't just cost her my love, it cost her her own soul. But then I close the photo album and go about my life. Because while revenge might be sweet, moving forward is sweeter. I've learned that sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest, but that doesn't mean we should stop trusting altogether. It just means we should choose more wisely next time. As for forgiveness, some say it's the only way to truly heal. But I've found that there's a certain peace in accepting that not everything deserves to be forgiven. Some betrayals cut too deep, some wounds are meant to leave scars, and some lessons are best learned the hard way. Kate learned hers. And I learned mine. The last time I checked, Kate was working as a real estate agent in a small town in Ohio. Tom was facing 5 years in federal prison for financial fraud. And me? I'm doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. I recently started my own consulting firm, specializing in helping startups avoid the kind of financial mismanagement that brought down my ex-fiancée's company. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. People sometimes ask me if I regret what I did, if orchestrating such an elaborate revenge was worth it. They wonder if I wouldn't have been better off simply forgiving and forgetting. But they don't understand. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about showing that actions have consequences, that loyalty matters, and that some debts can only be paid in full. Do I sleep well at night? Perfectly. Because while Kate and Tom may have stolen my happy ending, I wrote myself a better one. And this time, I made sure it was absolutely perfect. What I didn't expect was how my revenge would ripple out beyond Kate and Tom. Their downfall became a cautionary tale in our social circle, whispered about at dinner parties and analyzed in late-night conversations. Some people figured out I had played a role in it, while others remained oblivious. But everyone had an opinion. Sarah, my college roommate who had remained neutral during the initial betrayal, called me after the news of Tom's arrest broke. I always knew there was more to the story, she said, her voice careful. Kate's version never quite added up. I could hear the unasked questions in her voice. Did I do it? Did I orchestrate their downfall? Was I capable of such calculated revenge? I let her wonder. Sometimes the mystery is more powerful than the truth. The aftermath of my revenge taught me something unexpected about human nature. People who had sided with Kate and Tom during our initial split suddenly began reaching out to me, trying to rewrite history. "We never really believed you were in the wrong," they'd say, or "We always knew Kate was trouble." Their fair-weather loyalty was almost as disappointing as the original betrayal. But there were surprises too. Mark, Tom's former business partner who had been pushed out of the company years ago, sent me a bottle of champagne after the scandal broke. The card simply read, "To Karma's favorite assistant." I smiled when I read it, wondering if he had guessed my role in everything. The professional fallout was fascinating to watch. Other startups in the sustainable technology sector scrambled to distance themselves from Tom's company. Projects were abandoned, partnerships dissolved, and reputations carefully managed. The industry's response became a case study in crisis management, one that I may or may not have helped shape through careful anonymous tips to key players. Kate's spiral continued in ways I hadn't anticipated. After the divorce and bankruptcy, she tried to rebuild her life, but her reputation was in tatters. The same social circles that had once embraced her as Tom's wife now shunned her as his disgraced ex. Her attempts to start over in real estate were hampered by the whispers that followed her, about her role in the company's collapse, about her betrayal of her best friend, about her failure to notice her husband's infidelity and fraud. I watched from a distance as she moved from luxury apartments to increasingly modest accommodations, her designer wardrobe replaced by off-the-rack clothes, her confident smile dimming with each setback. Part of me felt a twinge of satisfaction at her struggles, while another part remembered the girl who had shared her cookie with me on that first day of high school. Tom's story took an even darker turn. In prison, he tried to maintain his entrepreneur persona, apparently convinced he could network his way into a comeback. But his fellow inmates were less impressed by his TED Talk-style pitches and startup jargon. Last I heard, he had given up on his business dreams and was taking computer programming classes through a prison education program. A far cry from the visionary CEO he had once pretended to be. The company's collapse had wider implications than even I had anticipated. The sustainable technology projects in developing countries, the ones Kate had tried to use to guilt me into helping, did indeed fail. But other organizations stepped in, more reputable ones with better funding and stronger ethical foundations. In the end, Tom's downfall probably did more good than harm in that sector. My own journey after the revenge was complex. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was real, but it came with unexpected edges. I found myself more cautious in new relationships, both personal and professional. The ability to orchestrate such a perfect revenge had shown me a side of myself that was both empowering and slightly terrifying. I dated occasionally, but carefully. Each potential relationship was approached with a level of strategic thinking that would have surprised my younger self. I analyzed personalities, backgrounds, and motivations with the same thoroughness I had applied to dismantling Tom's company. Some might call it paranoid, I called it protective. My consulting firm thrived, partly because of my first-hand understanding of how companies could be destroyed from within. Clients appreciated my attention to detail and my ability to identify potential vulnerabilities in their organizations. Few knew that my expertise came from being both the victim and the architect of a company's destruction. The irony wasn't lost on me, my success was built on the ashes of what Kate and Tom had taken from me. Every client I helped protect from fraud and mismanagement was a small victory, a way of turning my pain into something productive. My revenge had evolved into a successful business model. One day, about 2 years after everything fell apart, I received a letter from Kate. It was handwritten on cheap stationery, a far cry from the expensive paper she used to prefer. I recognized her handwriting immediately. Some things don't change, even when everything else does. Dear Anna, it began, I've started and torn up this letter 100 times. How do you apologize for destroying someone's life? How do you explain a betrayal that you can't even fully explain to yourself? I've had a lot of time to think about what I did to you, about the kind of person I was and the choices I made. I read the letter twice, noting how her normally perfect penmanship wavered in places, how there were small watermarks that could have been tears. She wrote about regret, about karma, about finally understanding the depth of pain she had caused. She didn't ask for forgiveness, perhaps she had finally learned that some things are unforgivable. The letter ended with a simple statement: "You were the best friend I ever had, and I threw it away for a man who turned out to be as fake as the life we built together. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to understand why." I kept the letter, adding it to the box where I stored the remnants of our friendship, photos, birthday cards, the friendship bracelet she gave me in 9th grade. It was an archive of betrayal now, a reminder of how quickly trust can turn to ashes. Sometimes, late at night, I take out that box and look through it. Not out of nostalgia or regret, but as a reminder. A reminder that I'm stronger than I ever knew, that justice comes in many forms, and that the best revenge isn't just about destroying what others have built, it's about building something better from the wreckage of what they took from you. The business world can be ruthless, but it pales in comparison to the complexity of human relationships. Trust, betrayal, revenge, redemption, these aren't just plot points in a story, they're the forces that shape our lives and define who we become. Kate and Tom taught me that lesson the hard way. But I learned it well, and I learned it completely. Their betrayal cost them everything they had, but it showed me everything I could be. In the end, maybe that's the real revenge, not just surviving their betrayal, but thriving because of it. As for forgiveness, well, some debts can never be repaid, some bridges can never be rebuilt, and some betrayals leave scars that are meant to remind us of the lessons we learned along the way. Kate's letter sits in that box of memories, a testament to a friendship that died and a revenge that gave birth to something stronger. They say success is the best revenge, but I disagree. The best revenge is becoming exactly who you were meant to be, even if it takes a broken heart, a betrayed trust, and a carefully executed plan to get there. Kate and Tom may have written the beginning of this story, but I wrote the ending. And I wrote it in my own terms, with my own rules, and my own definition of justice. Every morning, I wake up in my Chicago apartment, look out at the city skyline, and smile. Because while Kate and Tom are still trying to rebuild their shattered lives, I'm building an empire. An empire founded on the lessons they taught me, strengthened by the pain they caused me, and sustained by the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal isn't forgiveness, it's success. And that's a dish best served with perfect timing, careful planning, and just a touch of poetic justice. The story should have ended there. A neat conclusion to a tale of betrayal and revenge. But life rarely gives us clean endings, and the aftermath of revenge has a way of lingering, like smoke after a fire. 3 years after Kate's letter, I received a call from her younger sister, Rachel. We had always been close, she was like the little sister I never had. After Kate's betrayal, Rachel had maintained a careful distance, caught between family loyalty and her own sense of right and wrong. "Kate's in therapy," Rachel told me, her voice quiet. Real therapy, not just the lifestyle coaching she used to do. "She's different now. She talks about you a lot." I sat with that information, unsure how to feel. The Kate I knew would have considered therapy beneath her, a sign of weakness she couldn't afford to show. This new Kate, humbled and seeking help, was someone I didn't know how to categorize. "She's working at a domestic violence shelter," Rachel continued. "Helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal and abuse. She's good at it, apparently. Understanding, patient. The irony isn't lost on her." The news should have felt satisfying, the ultimate proof that my revenge had transformed my betrayer into a better person. Instead, it complicated things. It's easier to hate someone who remains unchanged by their downfall. Harder when they use their destruction as a foundation for redemption. My own life had evolved in unexpected ways too. The consulting firm had grown beyond my initial vision, expanding into areas I hadn't planned. We specialized not just in preventing financial fraud, but in helping companies build ethical frameworks that made such fraud less likely in the first place. Every client was a chance to prevent another Tom, another betrayal, another collapse. I hired Sarah, my former college roommate, as my chief operating officer. Her careful neutrality during the Kate and Tom saga had transformed into a sharp understanding of human nature that proved invaluable in our work. Together, we built something that went beyond revenge. We created a legacy of protection and prevention. The industry noticed. Awards came, speaking engagements multiplied, and my story, carefully edited for public consumption, became a case study in business schools. The art of corporate recovery, they called it, not knowing that it was really a masterclass in elegant revenge. Then came the day I saw Tom again. Not in person, he was still in prison, but on a video that circulated among our old business contacts. He had started teaching other inmates about financial literacy and entrepreneurship. The man in the video was older, grayer, his designer suits replaced by prison blues. But there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before, a genuine humility, a real desire to make amends. I watched the video 3 times, trying to reconcile this version of Tom with the man who had betrayed me, the fraudster who had nearly destroyed a company, the husband who had cheated on both me and Kate. It wasn't easy. My revenge had worked perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. It had destroyed the people who hurt me, but it had also forced them to rebuild themselves into something different. Something that made it harder to maintain the anger that had fueled me for so long. One evening, sitting in my office overlooking the Chicago skyline, I opened my laptop and began to write. Not a business plan or a consulting strategy, but a letter. To Kate. Not a letter of forgiveness, some things remain unforgivable, but a letter of acknowledgement. Acknowledging that while our paths had diverged irreparably, we had both found ways to create meaning from the wreckage. Dear Kate, I wrote, Rachel told me about your work at the shelter. It seems you found a way to turn betrayal into something useful. So have I. Maybe that's the real ending to our story, not the revenge or the justice, but what we built after everything burned down. I didn't send the letter. Some thoughts are better left unexpressed, some bridges better left uncrossed. But writing it helped me understand something crucial about revenge and its aftermath. The satisfaction isn't just in watching your betrayers fall, but in discovering who you become in the process of orchestrating their downfall. My consulting firm continues to grow. We've opened offices in New York and San Francisco. Each new client brings different challenges, different stories of trust and betrayal, different opportunities to prevent the kind of damage that Tom and Kate once caused. Sometimes, when I'm mentoring young entrepreneurs or speaking at conferences, I tell them that success in business isn't just about profits and market share, it's about understanding human nature in all its complex, contradictory glory. I tell them that the most dangerous threats often come wrapped in friendship and trust, and that the best defense is a combination of vigilance and wisdom. What I don't tell them is that these lessons came at a personal cost, paid in tears and betrayal and carefully executed revenge. I don't tell them that every successful company I help build, every fraud I help prevent, every ethical framework I help create, is both a business achievement and a personal victory over those who once thought they could take everything from me. Life has a way of teaching us exactly what we need to learn, even if the lessons come in packages we never would have chosen. Kate and Tom taught me about betrayal, but they also taught me about resilience. Their attempt to destroy me became the foundation of my success. Their betrayal gave me the insights that built my empire. So yes, revenge is sweet. But the real victory isn't in destroying those who hurt you, it's in using that destruction as a catalyst for creating something stronger, something better, something that wouldn't exist without the pain they caused. Kate works at her shelter, helping other women heal. Tom teaches financial literacy in prison, trying to prevent others from making his mistakes. And I build companies and protect them, turning my experience of betrayal into a shield for others. We're all paying our debts in different ways, creating different legacies from the ashes of what we destroyed and what was destroyed in us. Maybe that's the final lesson of revenge, that its true power lies not in the destruction it causes, but in what rises from the destruction. As for forgiveness, some things don't need to be forgiven to be finished. Some chapters don't need closure to be complete. And some endings don't need to be happy to be perfect. They say time heals all wounds. But that's not quite true. Time doesn't heal, it transforms. It takes our wounds and turns them into wisdom, our pain into power, our betrayals into building blocks for something new. My revenge story ended exactly as I planned it. But the story that came after, the one about who I became, what I built, and how I turned revenge into renaissance, that's the story that really matters. That's the story I'm still writing, one success at a time, one lesson at a time, one day at a time. And that's a story that's far from over. Yesterday, I received another letter from Kate. This one was different, written on high-quality stationery, her handwriting strong and steady. She wasn't asking for forgiveness or trying to explain herself. Instead, she told me about a young woman at her shelter, someone who reminded her of me from our high school days. She has your strength, Kate wrote, and your determination to rise above betrayal. I'm teaching her what I learned the hard way, that trust, once broken, leaves scars that can either destroy you or define you. I think you and I both chose the latter. Reading her words, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, that bridge was burned long ago. Not regret, my revenge was perfectly executed and completely deserved. What I felt was recognition. Recognition that sometimes the most powerful legacy of revenge isn't the destruction it causes, but the transformations it triggers. Kate and Tom's betrayal gave me something I never expected, a blueprint for success built on the ashes of their deception. Every company I protect, every fraud I prevent, every entrepreneur I mentor carries a piece of that lesson forward. In trying to destroy me, they gave me the tools to build something indestructible. That's the thing about revenge, it's not just about making others pay for their sins. It's about reclaiming your power, rewriting your story, and realizing that sometimes the best revenge isn't just surviving betrayal, it's thriving because of it. And that's a truth worth building a life on.